2,000 years later.
My wife of 8 years had an affair, and now I'm the one who isn't allowed to be angry. We've been doing the whole couples counseling thing. She owns it, calls herself a coward, says she completely broke our vows. But then she drops this line that absolutely guts me. She looks at me, tears in her eyes, and says, "Marcus, if I had the courage I have now, I wouldn't have strayed. I would have just handed you divorce papers." And all my brain hears is, if I wasn't so weak, I would have just dumped you. It feels like being abandoned all over again. Years ago, I went through a brutal bout of clinical depression. I was a ghost, barely getting out of bed, barely speaking. She held us together, but she always made sure I knew how heavy the burden was. Every time I had a dark day, it somehow became about her stress. So when the tables turned, when she lost her dad and her whole world collapsed, I just shut down. I built a wall. I remember thinking, where was my grace when I was drowning? I was icy. I can admit that. But she cheated. And now here's the part that is driving me completely insane. Our therapist looked us dead in the eye and set a strict rule for the next 90 days. No moral high ground, no pointing fingers. We both have to own the rot that destroyed our marriage. I hate it. I want that high ground. I need it. It's the only piece of armor I have left, the only proof that this wasn't all my fault. She tells me she wants to spend the rest of her life making it up to me, but I don't want to be a debt she's paying off. I want to be chosen. And every time I remember, she would have just left if she was stronger. I feel so damn small, so replaceable. Some days I want to fight for us. Other days, I just want to pack a bag and disappear.
6 hours later.
The unexpected moment, my daughter's boyfriend, finally became family. I'll be honest, I didn't want to like Marcus. When my daughter Chloe brought him home from grad school, he was exactly what I feared. Clean cut, wore iron shirts to a casual Sunday BBQ, and spoke with this perfection that felt like he was auditioning for a role, developing the tension. For 6 months, I was the king of the one-word answer. He'd ask about my classic Mustang, and I'd just grunt, "It runs." He'd offer to help with the dishes, and I'd tell him, "I got it," without even looking up. I figured he was just another temporary fixture in her life. The turning point. Then came the great basement flood of last November. A pipe burst while Chloe and my wife were out at a bridal shower. I was down there, knee-deep in freezing water, frantically trying to move 30 years of memories before they were ruined. Suddenly, the cellar door swings open. It's Marcus. He doesn't ask if I need help. He doesn't say a word. He just kicks off those fancy loafers, rolls up his sleeves, and dives right into the muck next to me. The emotional beat. For 3 hours, we worked in total silence, hauling heavy waterlogged boxes up those narrow stairs. My back was screaming, and I could see his expensive shirt was trashed, stained with rust and sewer water. When we finally got the last box up, we both just collapsed onto the kitchen floor, panting, covered in grime. I looked over at him, and for the first time, he wasn't performing. He just looked exhausted. The climax. He wiped a smudge of grease off his forehead, looked at the absolute disaster we'd just survived, and let out this wheezing, genuine laugh. He looked at me and said, "Sir, I think your Mustang is the only thing in this house that actually runs." The resolution. I didn't just smile. I roared. I went to the cabinet, pulled out the good bourbon I saved for New Year's, and poured us 2 heavy glasses. We sat there, on the floor, in our ruined clothes, talking until the girls got home. Waro. He wasn't trying to be perfect anymore. He was just there. And that's when I knew. He wasn't just dating my daughter. He was one of us.
Tomorrow.
The family business was betrayal. But I cut the final check. My parents didn't just kick me out. They erased me. The day I left for my freshman year at State, my dad didn't give me a hug. He handed me a cardboard box and told me, and I quote, "Don't bother calling collect. We're changing the locks." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I drove 6 hours home, only to find a "for sale" sign in the front yard. No forwarding address, no goodbye text, nothing. I spent that winter sleeping in my 20-year-old sedan, eating cold cans of beans and wondering what I did to deserve being trashed like an old sofa. Fast forward 15 years. I'm now a senior partner at a top-tier architectural firm in Chicago. I've built skyscrapers, but I never rebuilt that bridge to my past. Last Tuesday, I'm at a high-end steakhouse for a closing dinner, and there they are, sitting in the corner booth like nothing ever happened. My mother actually had the nerve to wave me over, like we were just old friends who lost touch. I sat down, my face like granite. I didn't want an apology. I wanted to see the look in their eyes. My father didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask where I'd been. He leaned in, looked at my Rolex, and said, "We saw your name in the business journal. We figured, since we gave you the drive to succeed by making you independent, you owe us a retirement consultant fee of $500,000. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just took a sip of my water, looked him dead in the eye, and whispered, "You didn't give me drive, Dad. You gave me a map to the exit, and I'm finally using it." I walked out, left a $100 bill for my drink, and blocked their numbers before I even hit the parking lot. Some people aren't family. They're just leftover baggage you finally learned how to drop.
A few moments later.
The glitch in the carpet that erased my entire life. It started with a loose thread. I was sitting on the floor of our first home, watching my daughter Chloe try to stack wooden blocks. She was 3. She had my messy hair and her mother's stubborn streak. My wife, Sarah, was in the kitchen, humming that one song from the radio while she made coffee. Life was perfect. But then I saw it. a tiny neon blue thread sticking out of the beige carpet. I reached down to pull it, but my fingers went right through it. I blinked. I stared. The more I looked, the more the carpet began to vibrate. The beige color started bleeding into a dull, static gray. Sarah walked in, asking if I wanted sugar, but her voice sounded like it was underwater. I looked up at her, and her face was blurry, like a low-resolution photo. I tried to scream, but the air felt like thick syrup. The gray spot on the carpet grew. It swallowed the blocks. It swallowed Chloe's feet. She didn't even cry. She just vanished. Then came the sound, a high-pitched metallic ringing that felt like a drill behind my eyes. Suddenly, I felt a sharp slam against my chest. My eyes snapped open. I wasn't in my living room. I was lying on a cold, wet sidewalk in downtown Chicago. A stranger was leaning over me, yelling, "Hey, buddy, stay with me." I'd slipped on a patch of black ice. I'd been out for exactly 45 seconds. The paramedics told me I was lucky, but they didn't understand. I didn't just wake up from a faint. I watched a decade of my life evaporate. Sarah isn't real. Chloe, she never existed. I'm back in my lonely studio apartment, but every time I walk across a carpet, I stop, I stare, and I pray I don't see that blue thread again.
Later.
The high-stakes silence of a father who knew everything for over 15 years, and honestly, I thought I'd seen every flavor of family drama there is, but last Tuesday, a single letter changed my entire perspective on what cold really means. The scene. My client was a man named Arthur. He was a quiet self-made construction mogul who looked like he'd stepped out of a 1950s movie. 6 months ago, he sat in my office, dying of a rare heart condition, and handed me a sealed manila envelope. He didn't say a word. He just smiled. The reading. Fast forward to the reading of the will. His wife, Brenda, wearing enough diamonds to blind a pilot, sat across from their 2 grown sons. They were already arguing about who gets the beach house. I opened the envelope. My voice actually wavered as I started reading Arthur's final words. The twist. Voice gets sharper, more rhythmic. "To my dear Brenda," it began. 40 years is a long time to play a character. I hope the personal trainer was worth the $5 million you've been siphoning into that offshore account since 2012. The room went dead silent. I didn't stop you, because I wanted to see just how far your greed would go. Surprise. The account was in my name too. I closed it yesterday. You're left with the prenup minimum. Enjoy the condo in Reno, building intensity. Then, he turned to his sons, to my boys, who couldn't be bothered to visit me once in the hospital because you were too busy networking at the country club. You always thought I was the old man who didn't understand the digital age. Well, I understood it enough to install those hidden cameras in the lake house. I saw you both laughing, joking, about how much faster I'd kick the bucket if you switched my meds. The aftermath, somber but satisfied. The sons looked like they'd seen a ghost. Arthur left the entire estate, $32 million, to the nurse who held his hand during his final hours, and a local animal shelter. The last line of the letter said, "Don't bother contesting this. I recorded the whole thing. I'm gone, but I'm still watching." Outro. I've never seen a room clear out so fast. Arthur wasn't just a builder. He was an architect of the most perfect surgical revenge I've ever witnessed.
1 hour later.
The day my quiet daughter finally had enough. My daughter's principal called me at 2:15, sounding like he'd just caught a bank robber. He said, "Mr. Miller, your daughter Maya just shoved another student into a locker." I didn't skip a beat. I just said, "Did she finish the job?" The silence on the other end was heavy. He started stammering about zero tolerance and disciplinary action, but I wasn't listening. I knew my Maya. She's the girl who rescues stray kittens and cries at Pixar movies. If Maya used her hands, it wasn't out of malice. It was out of necessity. When I walked into that office, the tension was thick enough to cut with a steak knife. There sat Maya, looking small but steady. And next to her was Sarah, a girl with Down syndrome who Maya has walked to the bus every single day for 2 years. Sarah was shaking. Across from them sat the trio. 3 girls whose parents donate enough to the school to have a wing named after them. They were acting like they were the victims of a high-speed chase. The principal cleared his throat. Maya admitted to the physical altercation. We have no choice but to suspend her. I looked at Maya. "Why'd you do it, kiddo?" She didn't look at the principal. She looked at me, her voice trembling but clear. They were filming her, Dad, in the girls' room. They were making Sarah do things for a TikTok. I told them to stop. I told the counselor last Tuesday. I told the hall monitor this morning. They just laughed and told Sarah she was famous. So, I stopped them. I turned to the principal. "You heard the girl. You had 2 warnings. Now, I suggest you check the victim's phone before I call my lawyer and the local news." The look on his face? Priceless. Maya got 3 days of vacation. We spent them at the lake, fishing and eating way too many cheeseburgers. Sarah's mom called me that night, sobbing, saying it was the first time Sarah felt safe at school in months. Sometimes the good kids have to break the rules to keep the peace. And if that makes me a bad parent, well, I'll take that title any day of the week.
3 hours later.
The Golden Child's tab and my empty bank account. My parents always told me, family is a circle of trust. But it turns out I was the only one standing outside of it. 6 months ago, my dad sat me down at the kitchen table. He looked devastated. He told me the family business was cratering. "Maya," he said, "we just can't afford to help with your master's degree anymore. Your mother's medical bills, they're just piling up." I didn't even hesitate. I told them I'd handle it. I dropped my full-time program, took out $30,000 in private loans, and started waitressing double shifts at a diner just to stay afloat. I was exhausted. but I felt like I was saving my family. Then I saw my sister Chloe's Instagram story. She's a lifestyle creator. She posted a video of her brand new white Range Rover with a caption that said, "So blessed. Huge thanks to mom and dad for the early graduation gift. Hashtag family goals." My heart didn't just drop, it shattered. I drove to their house that night, no yelling, just a quiet, cold fury. My mom tried to hide a brochure for a Mediterranean cruise behind her back. My dad, he didn't even look ashamed. He just shrugged and said, "Chloe needs the image, Maya. You're the strong one. You always find a way to make it work." That was the moment I realized they weren't struggling. They were just liquidating my future to fund her aesthetic. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just walked out. That same night, I blocked their numbers and sent one final email. I told them that since they clearly have so much extra cash, they can use it to pay back every cent of my stolen college fund. Or they can explain it to a judge. They've been blowing up my DMs, calling me cold and ungrateful. But for the first time in 24 years, I don't feel guilty. I feel awake. Family is a circle, right? Well, I just stepped out of theirs and started my own alone.